Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the whole flock of Israel. You Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Gotta give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. The Most High, the Heavenly Father, his Hebrew name is Yahweh. Not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahaya, not Allah, not Abba, not Yahuwah. It's Yahweh. And his only begotten Son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shah. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ. Not Serapis Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua, not Yehusha. It's Yahweh Shah. So we gotta give all praise up and glory to Yahweh. Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Rekah Korash. The bonus to the apostles and the bishop and elders of great millstone who well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, rather concepted a lot. In the sense of salutation, to all the occupant pushing this truth and believing this truth with the four winds of the earth. The entire world shedding light to the whole elect. Shalom to the outworth who are listening learning. If your sister who are listening learning. And my Zai from GMS Orlando Camp, combination of lesson, truth, facts, faith, and edification. Another day of edification, no one's be edifying. So I titled this lesson, The Resources, which are the elites, are obsoleting the current currency and conditioning you for the MOTB. And I got a couple of videos I want to play. Lord willing, we can get through them. You know, just a couple of precepts. So Lord willing, this be edifying. Maybe some infomercials. So lock you if it is. And this is these elites. And I said the resourcers, because I was gonna put elites. Then I thought about using another name like the hegemony, the hegemonies, because it's a dominance. As a matter of fact, so I said the resourcers, right? So this word, let me get this. So the resourcers, it's a
resource,
a stock or supply of money, materials, staff, and other assets that can be drawn on by a person or organization in order to function effectively. So the resourcers is the elites, those that control the resources.
resource,
And then I was gonna get the word obsolete, because what they are doing is slowly obsoleting the money.
obsolete,
No longer produced or used, out of date. And I was looking up, let me get this other one here. So this is obsoleting, right? It's a cause, a product or idea to be or become obsolete by replacing it with something new. So you got obsolete and obsoleting. So this is obsoleting, to be or become obsolete by replacing it with something new. And what they're replacing the current currency with is the MOTB. And this is the elites doing this. But they are using the other countries to do this first. And when America makes it mandatory, it'll be in perfection. So let's play some of this.
The US national debt currently sits at $34.8 trillion. For context, the population of the US is currently around 333 million people. So that equates to over $100,000 of national debt per person. But the worrying statistic is not the absolute value. Promise to recognize that this is a pretty alarming chart. But the scariest thing about this situation is that the US government can't pay the debt back. Literally, they cannot do it. The Congressional Budget Office has actually said that in 10 years from now, the situation is going to be worse than it is today, not better. So what does this lead to? And is there a sneaky cheat code the US might be able to use to get around the debt problem? Well, to get to that, we first have to understand the basics. So the government is $34.8 trillion in debt, and they're adding more and more debt to the pile each year. But how does that actually work? Well, just like you and me, a country goes into debt when they want to buy something they can't actually afford. So spend more money than it actually brings in each year, then it can go into debt to raise some more cash. Now, just like us, this debt needs to be repaid. And if you get into a situation where the country can't pay back its debts, the country defaults, just like a homeowner who can't pay back their mortgage. So how does this system actually work? Well, if the government needs to loan out their money to the US Treasury, and the Treasury promises to pay them back plus interest at some stage in the future, and depending on the length of the deal or the bond's maturity date, the interest rate you get might be higher or lower. For example, right now, the US 10-year Treasury yield is at about 4.3%, and that's an annual rate of return. It's also worth noting that it isn't just you or me that can buy these government bonds either. In the case of the United States, a lot of businesses and foreign countries will buy these bonds. For example, Japan, China, and the UK are huge holders of US government bonds, which means if the US were to default on these loans, that would send ripple effects throughout the whole world. And lastly, another interesting thing to mention is that the US Federal Reserve, which is America's central bank, can also buy treasury bonds. And this is the process the US uses to print money and inject it into the economy. The Federal Reserve will create money out of thin air and then buy government bonds to put that new money, trademark pending, into the hands of the government. So that's how a country goes into debt. And then the next thing to understand is, well, what on earth is going on in the United States? Well, remember, the main reason a country goes into debt is because they spend more than they earn. And this is known as a deficit. So the worse the annual deficit, the more money the government needs to raise in debt each year. If the government spends $4 trillion and only generates $3 trillion, they need to sell $1 trillion worth of bonds to make up the difference. Now, have a deficit over the years.
I applied to over 200 tech jobs and got rejected from every single one of them. And then I found out.
So back in the year 2001, the US actually did run a surplus, aka the year. But what's a little scary is that this was the last year that the US made money. Since that time, have a look at the annual deficit. This is income minus expenses. And as you can see, year by year, the long-term trend is worsening. Even taking out the huge deficit years of 2020 and 2021, the trend is still that the gap between spending and income is getting wider and wider each year. Now, as I mentioned, what this means is that to balance the books each year, the government needs to raise more and more money, aka they need to sell more and more bonds to go deeper and deeper into debt. And that's what we can see in this chart here. In 2001, the national debt was around $10 trillion. But as the deficit has worsened, look at what's happened. In 23 years, the debt has ballooned to a staggering $34.8 trillion. Now, that is a huge debt load. But the problematic thing is that the US can't pay it down. And honestly, they may not want to. Have a look. The US has brought in $3.29 trillion in income and has spent $4.5 trillion. So since October 2023, they're around $1.2 trillion in the red. But have a look when we break this down further. How did the government generate their revenue? Well, from taxes, 51.7% from individual income taxes, 34.2% from Social Security and Medicare taxes, 9.4% from corporate tax, and then small amounts from excise taxes, estate and gift taxes, and customs duties. Now, let's flip over to the expenses and see what's going on there. 21% of spending has been on Social Security, 14% on Medicare, 13% on interest payments for their debt, 13% on health, 13% on defense, 11% on income security, and so on. You're probably already seeing the issue, right? To fix the deficit, the US needs to either earn more, spend less, or do both. All options of which are very unpopular. I mean, do you want to pay higher taxes? Of course not. Do you want budget cuts to Social Security, schools, hospitals, or the military? No, thank you. But this problem left unchecked is only going to get worse. The Congressional Budget Office is actually expecting the deficit to grow from $2 trillion in 2024 to $2.8 trillion in 2034. And this worsening of the deficit over time is predicted to swell the US debt to GDP ratio from 99% this year to 122% in 2034, surpassing its previous high of 106% of GDP. So it seems that America is trapped in a bit of a tough spot. Cutting back in certain areas is unlikely to be very popular, but also raising taxes isn't very popular either. Right now, just to make things worse, the US faces another challenge on top of that, one that they haven't felt in over 2 decades, and that is higher interest rates. You see, the government doesn't set interest rates. That's done by the central bank, called the Federal Reserve in America. Now, while they work with the US government, they're actually separate from them, and their main job is to raise and lower interest rates to keep the economy and the US dollar as stable as possible. But the problem is, on the back of all this inflation we've been seeing over the past few years, the Fed has now raised interest rates from 0 to around 5.5%. So why is that important? Well, remember, all of this government debt has a maturity date on it, right? Once the bonds hit maturity, the US pays back the bondholder. Well, in a deficit situation, when these debts come due, the US doesn't have that money to pay back their debts. So they instead roll the debt over. They sell more bonds to pay off the old ones. But that's a problem in today's conditions because the previous debt would have been sold at very low interest rates, whereas now the debt needs to be refinanced at much higher interest rates. And what this means is that as more and more debts roll over, the amount of interest the US needs to pay each year rises, which increases their annual expenses, which makes the deficit worse. As we saw earlier, so far this fiscal year to date, interest has been the third largest expense category for the US. Since October 2023, they've spent $601 billion just on interest payments. And going back to the CBO's report, we can see that over the coming years, that number is only set to rise. They note that in 2025, interest costs are greater in relation to GDP than at any point since at least 1940, and are expected to rise to 4.1% of GDP by 2034, totaling 1/6 of all federal spending. And as you can see, with mandatory costs rising, this is going to greatly reduce the amount of discretionary spending the government could carry out, which naturally means tougher times, higher taxes, or taking on even more debt to cover the increased interest payments. This is what people are referring to when they talk about a debt spiral. The idea that increased interest rates cause the interest payments on rolled over government debt to rise, which means that the government simply borrows more money to account for that, which in turn creates an even larger pile of debt with higher interest rates. Now, obviously,
Now remember, these elites controls all the resources. And as the head brother said a couple weeks ago, how can you be in debt and you print the money, man? See, this shows you that this is a Ponzi scheme, which fiat currency was a Ponzi scheme from the beginning. It was a plan that the elites came up with. This is conditioning through gradualism, which is to lead you to the sea hill, man. This is a plan that was predestinated. So these elites is playing with this currency like this to condition your mind, man. Because whatever happens, you gotta go with it. You don't control nothing. So you gotta go with whatever happens. Just like Argentina made their digital currency mandatory, as other countries doing. This is the elites playing, man. And it's all to condition your mind to whatever happens. And this is why I said, let me read this. In Revelations 13, this is madness, but it's all a game, man. In Revelations 13, it reads, verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? See, this is conditioning your mind to the system, man. You are totally sold on the government. And it's all a game, man.
This isn't ideal, and debt spirals can sometimes, as the name suggests, spiral out of control. So the number one option is obviously to try really hard to reduce the deficit and return to surplus in the long run. But with that said,
And this is remember, this is an Edomite system. This is the so-called white man system, and it's mostly Edomites that's falling to this. 2/3 Jakes, but it's mostly Edomites, man. This is what the so-called white man is doing to his own people. Usury and unjust gains, man. Because this is a king that's not fit to rule. The scriptures say that children are our oppressors.
Seemingly nearly impossible in the case of the US, recently some people have been wondering whether the United States might take a different approach, that being inflating away the debt. How does this work? Well, think about this. Let's go back to 1970 for a second. Back then, the median house price in the US was around $24,000. The average annual salary in America was $7,711 for a full-time job, and a loaf of bread cost 24.3 cents. Now, just imagine you're taking out a mortgage back then. Say you took out the full amount of $24,000. Now, we look at that today and say, holy smokes, that's cheap. You know, how can that be? Today, the same median house will cost you $420,800. Now, what's interesting is that, sure, the house today will have different decor and the building standards have improved since the 70s, but you're still buying a house, right? It's the same base commodity. The reason the same commodity is so much more expensive today, however, is because of inflation.
So how much did it cost to fill your tank?
Almost $100.
How much is the car payment?
Wages have risen, the cost of groceries have risen, the cost of houses have risen, and now we look at that $24,000 loan and say, wow, that mortgage is like half of my annual salary today. Today, that mortgage would be so easy to pay off because our wages are so much higher. Well, this same principle applies to the government's debt. When people say the government can inflate the debt away, what they mean is that the government can get into a massive pile of debt, but then let inflation decrease the value of their currency so that in the future, the government will be paying back all that fixed rate debt with money that is now worth less. This is exactly what the US did after World War II. The US used inflation to reduce its debt to GDP ratio. So how would this occur today? Well, it has a lot to do with money printing by the Federal Reserve, known as quantitative easing. So stay with me here. Let's say the Federal Reserve prints a lot of money and buys some government bonds. This increases the amount of US dollars in existence, and it gives new money to the government to spend. Now, what they could do with that money is invest it in creating jobs or building infrastructure or other programs designed at increasing the productivity of the United States. And that's a good thing. If productivity rises, then businesses and workers earn more, which leads to higher incomes and more tax revenue. Lower borrowing costs also means there's more investment, which causes asset prices to rise. And generally, the inflation rate will pick up too. And if this scenario continues as the years march on, the acceleration of the US economy, the increased GDP, and the continued steady inflation of all things eventually make the past debts look small. That 1970 median house price and median salary look tiny by today's standards. So that's the general theory of inflating away your debt. And it's great in theory, but in practice, it isn't quite as simple as that. And that's because there's always consequences in economics. The main problem with the theory is actually one that we face today, and that is that when you do employ these stimulative measures to start encouraging inflation, well, you get inflation. And if you leave inflation unchecked, we know from history that it can very quickly get away from you, which can lead to economic instability, social unrest, and at the extreme can cause a collapse or abandonment of a currency. Now, as has been well documented over the past few years, the inflation rates we saw in America and around much of the Western world were way too high to be sustained. And thus, while they might assist in inflating away the US government's debt burden, the Federal Reserve has had no choice but to step in and raise interest rates to try and slow down inflation. Inflation was happening so quickly that it was actually a problem. So by raising interest rates, the Fed puts the clamps on the economy and slows it down for a little while. And that's what we're in right now. So while the theory of inflating away your debt burden might sound nice, in reality, it does come with downsides and needs to be carefully monitored. And that's why the Federal Reserve targets targets a 2% inflation rate as opposed to 0. It keeps the economy pushing forward. It keeps prices going up steadily over time, keeps wages rising steadily over time. It encourages spending sooner, which grows the economy. And the big long-term benefit from a debt perspective is that it slowly but surely devalues the currency, making debt repayments from yesteryear easier and easier. So overall, that's the process of how the government and the central bank can team up to lower the debt burden over time. But with all that said, I think it is worth remembering that the number one way to keep on top of the debt situation in the United States is going to be through smart fiscal policy and a particular emphasis on lowering the deficit. At the end of the day, the most sustainable long-term approach to a country's debt management is not to inflate the debt away, it's just to have a country whose financials work. So while there might be some tricks you can pull out of the bag, the number one focus, at least in my view, is that America should focus on being more productive and try to tighten the belt where it makes sense to do so. You can take my home country of Australia, for example. Now, it is a different economy, but the same principles apply. For example, Australia's budget outcome for our financial year ended on the 30th of June 2023 showed that while we too had some debt on the books with gross debt of around 890 billion Australian dollars or 35.2% of GDP, and we too had to pay interest on that government debt, around 11.9 billion Australian dollars. This is less of an overall issue because the government returned a surplus of $22.1 billion. So in Australia, for that year, the government's cash coming in exceeded its expenses. So the government made money. That's the ultimate win because then they can decide to put that money to use, building roads or schools or paying down debt if they want, or even doing tax cuts, which they did. But overall, that is the story behind America's debt situation. Also, one thing I did just want to mention before I sign off, I've been making a lot more Instagram.
So let me get this. America, there is no. Let me get this in Proverbs. This is Proverbs. Let me see. Proverbs 27 and 24 reads, "For riches are not forever, and doeth the crown endure to every generation?" And the answer is no. Let me get this in the NLT. Riches are not forever, and the crown for the so-called white man do not endure to every generation. Because this is it, man. And they messing up. They from Esau Edom, the so-called white man, has fumbled this bag, man. So let's go here. See what it said in NLT. Proverbs 27 and 24. NLT reads, "For riches don't last forever, and the crown might not be passed to the next generation." And it won't. The NIV said that for riches do not endure forever, and a crown is not secure for all generations. And it's not, man. Yeah. So this is, man, let me get this in Jeremiah. This place can be healed, man. And as the brother said, Ed brother said, they constantly he mentioned the quantitative easing. But this place is in debt, man. So I got a couple more clips here. Let's show this. This is Jeremiah 51. And I'm gonna start at verse 7 here. Bear with me. And Shalom to Dr. Mawaf 29, yeah, by Shema Shah Rock a Thumb. And to that brother, let me see here, hold on. Hold on here. Bear with me here. Get rid of this. All right. And to that brother, let me see the brother name. Yasharala in Nevada. Shalom out Yabba Shema Shah Brakatah. But I'm not the elder, brother. The water for the compliment, but I'm not an elder, brother. I'm just a I'm just a young old nigga, young old brother in the truth, man. Hey, just fighting the battle, brother. Yeah, I'm not an elder though. The water for the compliment, brother, but I'm not an elder. So this is Jeremiah 51:7. Babylon had been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her take balm for her pain? If so be she may be healed. See, in that balm is them trying to get out of this debt, which they can't. So quantitative easing, which is them printing more money. And how can you print money but you're in debt and you print the money? Well, the governments, all right, the water, bro. The governments is controlled, and as he mentioned, all these banks is controlled by the central banks, which is controlled by the elites, man. You know, it goes back to the Rothschilds, Oppenheimers, DuPonts, and the Gettys, right? The Oppenheimers and the Rothschilds. They controls all the banks, man. And it's the elites that's doing this because it's just conditioning people's mind. See, these devils is something else because they using the currency to put fear in the people, man. And this is why I said in Revelation 13:4 that they wanted after the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, because of what appears to be the technology, how they advanced through the years, and things look good, man. That's why I say in Joel 2, the land was as a garden of Eden before them, before the missiles. It looks good, man. Everything is like it's getting back to normal. This is the best country on the planet. This is the best they have ever been. That's why I said the Lord in Isaiah. Jeremiah 51:7. Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen. Howl for her, take balm for her pain. If so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. So that's why the debt is going to constantly go up, man. But the elites is doing this on purpose. This is not something that America is doing, or they trying to fight it off. No, the elites is doing this is just to condition the people's minds with fear to accept the new currency, man, which is of the new world order, man. The new currency is the MOTB. They are using fear to condition the people, man. The Lord uses fear to put the Lord uses judgment. When you see other judgment happen, you like, man, the Lord, those that's in the know. We talk about this all the time, how when people get judgment, it be public, man. It's a lot of judgments that was public. So it get caught on camera or some camera that was next to a building or somebody's door cam caught it. It's judgment. When the guy that picked up sticks on the Sabbath, the Lord told him to stone him, man. It was a public judgment to put fear, to keep fear on the Israelites, man. Well, this is what the so-called white man doing. By using the currency, by using the up and downs, inflation, deflation, all this up and down, back and forth, is to put fear in you to trust in the government, because the government right? Where they say they got your life in their hands, right? They looking out for you. They looking out for them. They got your best at heart. It's deceiving the people through fear, man. So when MOTB happened, and just like in the movie Die Hard with Bruce Willis, when the guy said when he went to go get the last hacker, because they was killing the hackers, and the guy told him, "Man, it's a fire sale. Everything must go." They know where the hackers at. They know who. So when it was somebody like these certain banks, it was a bank some months ago. They lost like 30 grand. So they were disputing the bank about putting their money back. And they said they wasn't going to get them. They wasn't going to fund their money back for some whatever reason. Then they went to, I forget who it was, but they gave their money back. These things like this happen. Just like, oh, if your child get lost, well, if you put the C hip in them, if they somebody get snatched them up, we can track them. Like they did the dogs, right? They were doing the dogs, different animals. They was putting C hips in the dogs and the animals, right? So if your dog got lost, oh, we could find, and they had it, and it was in the news. The dog got lost somewhere in Florida, and he wound up in New York somewhere. This is a few years ago. So that was in the news as a mainstream news. Oh yeah, we found the dog. The dog came from Florida, but because the people put the C hip in him, he was found in New York somewhere. So they use that as a conditioning, man, to say, see, if you had your money on this, then somebody hit your account, they could have never got in. These elites, the government, they know who the hackers are, man. They showed you in the damn movie. They know who the hackers are. They know people. Oh, somebody lost 50 grand at their account. They do that. These things be happening on purpose, man, so they can create. It's called problem, reaction, solution. Let me play this. Lord willing, because this computer acting funny, man. Let's see here.
National debt is higher than it's ever been at any point in its history. In 2024, it's sitting at $35 trillion, which is over $100,000 of debt for every person in the US. And just this year, the United States will spend almost $900 billion on interest payments. That's more than the US spends on its military, and it's
How the hell we owe the government 100,002, 100,002? How we owe the government that, man? Hold on, let's run this back.
national debt is higher than it's ever been at any point in its history. In 2024, it's sitting at $35 trillion, which is over $100,000 of debt for every person in the US. And just this year, the United States will spend almost $900 billion on interest payments. That's more than the US spends on its military, and it's more than the entire government annual spending of a wealthy, medium-sized country like Spain. Now, if that sounds like a lot, it's because it is, but this is not actually the problem. This is where the problem just begins. The real issue here is that the national debt keeps growing every day, currently rising by $1 trillion about every 100 days. And the pace of this growth is constantly increasing. And perhaps even a bigger issue is that the US government doesn't have a plan for how to fix that. And in fact, it's not even trying to do that anymore. And it's quite likely that it wouldn't even be able to if it did. Instead, the government itself expects the problem to just get worse. And even for the world's largest economy, this could eventually really get out of hand. But how did we get here? Why does everyone seem to ignore it? And what is all this leading to?
It's leading to
Well,
it's
let's
leading to the MOTB, man. He say, how do we get here? Hold on, let's get rid of the infomercial.
It takes time to learn, of course, but once you get it down, this skill can be used over and over.
Come on. That computer wanna act up, man.
Well, let's start by explaining how did we actually.
So he said, how do we get here, right? This is Proverbs 13 and 11. It reads, wealth gotten by vanity. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished. They got it through vanity, man. Usury and unjust gains. What is that? Is it 11? Let's see. There was another one. Let me let this play. I'm gonna go find it real quick and come back.
Actually get here. Even though the scale of the number is completely different, a government debt operates sort of like a personal debt that you and I might have. Just as individuals might take out loans for a car or a house, governments can borrow money for investments, or if their expenses simply exceed their income. When a government spends more than it earns in revenue, mainly through taxes, it creates a budget deficit. And to cover this shortfall, the government borrows money, adding to the national debt. For the US government, this involves issuing treasury bonds, which investors, both from the US and from abroad, buy with the promise that they will be paid back with interest on top in the future. But when the debt gets too large, it becomes problematic. The higher the debt gets, the more risky it becomes for the lenders, and the higher interest they demand, which means that the government...
See, hold on. You already just said. Let's run this back.
higher the debt gets, the more risky it becomes for the lenders. And
So this is let's get this. Isaiah 24:1. No, Isaiah 24:2. It reads, and it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant. And who is the priest? The Roman Catholic Church. All religions come from Roman Catholic dogma. So it reads, and it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master. Because we got to follow ways, we follow ways of Esau, even the so-called white man. The Lord said in Deuteronomy 28:48, we should go to the enemy for the one of all things. It reads, as with the maid, so with her mistress. As with the buyer, so with the seller. As with the lender, so with the borrower. As with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him. This is Proverbs 15:27. He said, how do we get here? Proverbs 15:27, it reads, he that is greedy for gain, he that is greedy of gain, troubleth his own house. How do we get here? Greedy for gain, man. As it said in Proverbs 13:11, wealth gotten by vanity.
the higher interest they demand, which means that the government has to pay more and more every year just to service the debt, without actually decreasing it. And that starts to eat into how much money the government can spend on other things, like education, investments, military, or anything else. Just like with individual loans, the higher debt you have, the harder it becomes to get rid of it, and the faster you accumulate more and more of additional debt, eventually finding yourself in a debt spiral that you cannot get out of. And if investors lose confidence in a country's ability to repay its debt, it can lead to a debt crisis, where the costs of borrowing spike and everything starts to fall apart, which is what we have seen happen to countries.
And see, they talking about everybody owe $100,000. Well, the Lord set up laws that after 7 years, man, a person's debt is supposed to be cleared. This is Deuteronomy 23:19. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother. Usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. So Esau don't supposed to be doing it to us, right? So Esau being the brother of our forefather Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. So we'll be considered his nephews, right? His nephews and nieces. So he should be doing that to the Chinese and Japanese, to the Elamites, right? To the Hamites. He shouldn't be doing that to us. Proverbs 23:19. For vocab talk about, oh yeah, we all brothers. Jacob and Esau ran and met each other and fell on their necks. Man, listen, man, you slow belly. Deuteronomy 23 and 19. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother. And you got all this predatory lending these Edomites did to Jake, man, way back in these 50s and the 60s, right? Jake started to do good. This nigga, predatory lending, redlining. What are you talking about, man? Deuteronomy 23 and 19. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother. Ain't he our brother? Usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. You're supposed to do this. There's a law. The Lord gave a law. You can do this to the heathens, but you don't want to do it to your brethren. And the Edomites always talking about we all brothers. We brothers in Christ. We all bleed red. Why the fuck y'all charging us usury, nigga? Fucking hypocrites, man. This is Proverbs 28 and 8. He that by usury and unjust gain increaseth his substance. He shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. And who is he that will pity the poor? Yahweh Shai.
And times again for hundreds of years all around the world. In the US, the current debt level is at over 120% of the GDP, which is already quite an alarming ratio compared to most other advanced economies. And this ratio keeps increasing. But although the US has carried debt for most of its history, it wasn't always nearly this high. The debt began to increase in the 1980s due to
This is why I stopped shopping on Amazon, and you should too. Don't spend another dime on Amazon.
tax cuts, increased military spending, and slower economic growth. But the most dramatic increase has occurred in recent decades. The 2008 financial crisis led to massive government spending on bailouts and stimulus packages. And more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic saw the government inject trillions into the
To
economy.
show you how hypocritical the Edomites are, the so-called white man. It was his people that needed bailing out, man. This is an Edomite society, man. An Edomite ran hegemony, dominance. Why do your people need bailing out when they all supposed to benefit from this? When King David was ruling, all 12 tribes of Israel was benefiting. When Solomon was in power, man, all 12 tribes of Israel was benefiting, man. The so-called white man is in power, and all of the Edomites, all of the so-called white people do not benefit from this generational wealth and white privilege. And even when it was all good at the time, back in the 50s and the 60s, the 1700s, the 1800s, you still had those that was working, make check to check, and you had the rich. So they still wasn't giving their people generational wealth and white privilege at an equal playing field, man. And though the Edomites, the woman stayed at home, right, to take care of the kids, and the man made enough to take care of the woman in the house and the kids, and for him and his wife to have a vehicle. They still wasn't rich. You still had those that were still higher up. You had the common Edomites that was working, doing good. Then you had those that was on Wall Street. Why those on Wall Street wasn't giving money? Because they made money off their own people. They made money off the Edomites. Edomites making money off of Edomites, man. This nigga is not fit to rule, man. Because everybody's supposed to. Let me read this. In Ephesians, it talks about the commonwealth of Israel, man. These Edomites are supposed to have a common wealth that they don't have. Ephesians 2, verse 11. Wherefore remember that ye been in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called circumcision in the flesh made by hands. So you had the Israelites that were born in Jerusalem, calling the Israelites that wasn't born in Jerusalem's heathens. That at the time ye were without Mashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenant of promise, having no hope, and without God in the world. But now in Mashiach Yahushua, Ye who sometime were far off are made nigh by the blood of Mashiach. So those Edomites that was far off, why they at least ain't helping them and giving them the commonwealth of the Edomites? Because these niggas is wicked, man. The scripture tell you that he have consulted shame to his own house.
To prevent a collapse and to stimulate growth. These emergency measures, while not necessarily bad on their own, have caused the national debt to get so quickly to its current levels. But that's actually just part of the story. If the national debt was so high purely because of spending due to a global crisis like COVID, that wouldn't really be that bad. The US national debt was already at this level once, in 1946, after the enormous costs of running a war economy in World War II. But the difference is that while after the World War II, the US quickly cut down on spending and the debt went back to normal levels in just a few years, this is not what's happening now. And it's actually the opposite. The US is not currently dealing with any major global crisis. It's not fighting a major war and there's no pandemic. But the government still spends far more than it makes on just keeping the country running. For every dollar the government brings in through taxes, it spends $1.25. And the gap is made up by borrowing. In 2023 alone, the US ran a budget deficit of over $1.7 trillion. And with rising interest rates, the cost of servicing the debt has become one of the federal government's largest expenditures, surpassing spending on major programs like Medicare and defense. If any individual ran their finances that way, it would be very obvious that they are incredibly financially irresponsible, and that it just cannot end well. But when the governments do the same, no one seems to care. And because the kind of tax increases or spending cuts that would be needed to actually get to a budget surplus and to decrease the debt are highly unpopular, there's no incentive for politicians to deal with it now at the expense of their own approval rating. And so everyone just kind of leaves it for later, while the problem gets bigger and bigger. So, can the US actually pay off this debt? Well, in theory, yes, but in practice, it's almost impossible. Because of the size of the debt, there's almost no way how the US could realistically pay it down in the near future without taking some really drastic measures. But it doesn't actually need to do that. It doesn't need to pay its debt completely, as almost every country in the world, including the wealthiest ones, carries some level of national debt. And it's more about having a manageable level rather than not having any debt at all. But what's worrying is that this level of debt just keeps growing. If the US continues on its path of running budget deficits and allowing the national debt to grow without almost any control, the consequences could become increasingly severe. The shorter term risk
it could be what he said. Hold on. Ain't no could be, it will be.
To grow without almost any control, the consequences could become increasingly severe.
Increasingly severe. No, it's coming. This is Job 24 and 23. It reads, though it be given him to be in safety, the so-called white man, the elites, whereon he rested, because the common so-called white people, they ain't in safety. Though it be given him to be in safety, whereon he resteth, yet his eyes are upon their ways, because the angels is watching. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. And the Lord said in Genesis 3 that thus shall they eat all the days of their life, and on their belly shall they go. Belly men being you're gonna be brought low, the basis of men. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. Started with the Greek Empire. They are taken out of the way as all other rulerships. They're going to be taken out of the way and cut off as the tops of the ears of corn. And if it be not so, who will make me a liar and make my speech nothing worth? And Yahweh said in Luke 24, see, these Edomites got a time they're gonna reign, man, and then then it's gonna be over. This is Luke 21:24. Yahweh shall say, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, talking about Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So their time is running out, man. And as our Apostle Hall was doing a pre-meal, and Apostle Ramla was mentioning that this is what the Edomites say. that every kingdom at the point of 250 years they always fall. And America is at the point of the permanent decline. So, man, the Lord is beautiful, man. It's beautiful how the Lord works. And that's why it's saying uh Isaiah 26:10, let favor be showed to the wicked, yet we not learn righteousness in the land of uprightness where he deal unjustly, and he would not behold the majesty of Yahweh. And the Lord unto show the Edomites favor thrice, man. This is their third time having dominance in the earth. Start with the Greeks and the Roman Empire, and then this last empire here, man. And they have been living wickedly, man. Usury and unjust gain, man. Usury. You can't prosper. Your kingdom will not prosper for long doing usury, man. And the Lord said you could do it to your brethren. You can do it to heathen, but you can't do it to your brethren. And they have done so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. They have done us the worst when it comes to lending. Jake can't even get a loan.
The shorter term risk is that higher levels of debt and higher debt payments could over time prevent other government spending, forcing cuts to essential services or needed investments in infrastructure, education, innovation, and everything else. And in the worst case scenario, if the debt ratio gets completely out of hand and perhaps couples together with a serious economic recession or another global crisis, investors could lose confidence in the US government's ability to manage its finances, which could in turn trigger.
Look at this. So this video right here, it say from 11 days ago. You see right here at the bottom. It say why the U.S. military spends so much money. It say what is that? 853 billion. What is that? 1, 10, 100,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million, billion, 10 million. Yeah, trillion. Is that 853 billion, man. Almost a trillion. Almost a trillion, man, in military. But that's Joel 3:9. Be your plasters and the swords and improves in the spirit. And what's that? Let me make sure. 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million, billion, 10 million, 100 million. Yeah. 853 billion, man. And they still don't have the number one missiles on the planet. The Russians do. 853 billion in military. U.S. military spend.
A debt crisis similar to what we have seen in other countries, where after the costs of borrowing skyrocketed, the governments were forced to adopt extreme austerity measures, or in even more extreme cases, default on its obligations, or in other words, basically declare a bankruptcy. However, the US is in a unique position because the dollar is the world's primary reserve currency. This status gives the US government more leeway to borrow because there's consistent global demand for dollars and US Treasury bonds. In other words, the rules that apply to other countries don't always apply to the US. But that still doesn't mean that the US
See
is
that?
complete.
You already said that's doesn't always apply to the US. Of course it don't. That's in Daniels. Let's read this. See this, man, and it's the elites that controls the world using America and Israel, man. The elites doing this. This is Daniel 7. Where is it here? Daniel 7 and 20. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, the 3 was the French, Spanish, and the British. You know them civil wars in America. Even of the horn that had eyes, which was America, that destroyed, the French, Spanish, and the British, even though America came out of Great Britain, and a mouth that spake very great things. That's in Revelation 12, 5-7. Whose look was more stout than his fellows. That's what he just said right here. Let's run it back.
other countries don't always apply to the US. But that still doesn't mean that the US is completely immune to the consequences of excessive debt. Continued.
No, it don't, because now it's starting to fall on him, man. But see, this is talking about his look was more stout than his fellows, man. But now, that's why the Lord had everything written. Oh, let me read this. Let me read this. See, it's only so long the Lord is going to let you just run around and be a fugitive and a vagabond, man. It's only, you know how they saying, it's a small world, right? You got certain people that know certain people, but the people that they know, the other people don't know each other, but they'll get around to him and be like, man, you know him? Yeah, we know him I know him for years. We went to school together, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh no, I ain't know who. That's how it be. It's a small world. This is 2 Ezra 5:42. And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, like as there is no slackness of the last, like there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. And this is why Solomon said this in Ecclesiastes 4. It said, like there's no slackness of the first, the same as the last, man. So this is why Vocab Malone and them fighting tooth and nail to say the Edomites done away with. This is why the wisest words of the king, the wisest king said this. There is no end of all the people. Ecclesiastes 4:16. Listen. Let me read this again in 2 Ezra. I need you to listen. Open your ears up. This is what this is written. These niggas would not escape. And now these things start to fall on his own people. 2 Ezra 5:42. It reads, and he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, which is full circle. The world called it karma. In the Bible, the Lord called it judgment. Like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first, which is this. You got to pay for what you did. Ecclesiastes 4:16. It reads, there is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after should not rejoice in him. Why? Because like there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. In Ecclesiastes 1, let me get this. It says, let me find it here, right here. Ecclesiastes 1:6. Hey, the Lord said like a hit judgment into a ring, man. This is Ecclesiastes 1:6. The wind goeth towards the south and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind return again according to his circuits. You can't escape. It said the wind returneth again, man. The Lord got this going in a circle, man. Everything in a circle, man. And it's all come back. You can't escape the judgment of Yahweh Shema outside, man.
Unchecked borrowing could eventually undermine confidence in the dollar, leading to higher interest rates and inflation, or even a loss of the dollar's reserve status. And while these are not immediate threats, but rather the worst case scenarios, and although the US has more advantages and stronger position than any other nation, at the end of the day, no country in the world can ignore basic economic rules, and no country can afford to spend way more than it can afford forever. Sooner or later, the US government will have to introduce some painful changes.
See? And it's going to be the MOTB, man. So this is why the elites have all countries changing the monetary system to digital. Let me get this. Beautiful, man. Because the Lord is doing this speedily too. This ain't no slow thing, man. Let's get this here. This I saw today. Because because of the petrodollar, all these countries is in debt, man. Come on. Because of the petrodollar. And this is why I saw this clip today. Let's play this, Lord willing. You know, some nights computer just flow good, and some nights you want to be with the bull, man. All right, so let's play some of this. Bear with me here.
Every couple of years, Americans watch as the government dukes it out over whether to raise the mysterious debt ceiling that allows the U.S. to pay off its many financial obligations around the world, like arguing over how to split up a check. But have you ever wondered who the United States actually owes all that money to? Well, today we're going to take a look at who the United States is actually in debt to. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know.
We know who they in debt to, man. So they show you the history of the three horns, which is said in Daniel, that was plucked up, right? The French, Spanish, and the British. That was plucked up by the American colonizers. And these French, Spanish, and British is all Edomites. Now think about this, because it's all spiritual. So you had the French, Spanish, and the British, right? Then you had the American Edomites, all trying to colonize Babylon the Great. That's 4 different Edomites, right? 4 different groups of Edomites. How many Edomites was it during the time of the Greek Empire? It was Antiochus Epiphanes. It was Cassander. It was Lysimachus, and it was Ptolemy, man. 4 Edomites, man, fighting over the empires. It was 5, but they cut down the other one. So you got these 4 Edomites, right? Edomites, brothers, blood brothers. Same thing happened here in Babylon the Great, man. Ain't nothing new under the sun. So you got these Edomites fighting, but they all in debt to the elites. To the elites, man. America is in debt to the elites. Every country is, because every country has a central bank.
What other wild debts from history you'd like to hear about? Okay, time to follow the money. Since 2019, Japan has been the largest foreign owner of U.S. debt, peaking at $1.53 trillion in 2014. That's a lot of yen. Japanese holdings of U.S. treasuries did drop over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, and Japanese demand for U.S. treasuries reached its lowest point in late 2022 after the Fed raised interest rates on the U.S. dollar, weakening the yen. The Japanese demand for U.S. bonds has long been an important part of the American economy and financial markets. So seeing the Japanese government sell short-term U.S. bonds in an effort to strengthen its own currency gave Wall Street some conniptions. Don't start sending them charity money yet, because the concern was short-lived. Japanese demand for U.S. treasuries rose again in early 2023, thanks to Japanese pension funds buying 10-year U.S. bonds due to their higher yield than the Japanese equivalent. So, on behalf of the U.S. economy, thanks, Japanese pensioners, and have a great retirement. Over the last 2 decades, China has been one of the largest foreign holders of U.S. debt. At the 2013 peak of Chinese holdings in U.S. treasuries, China held about $1.59 trillion worth when adjusted for inflation, which is enough cash to build a water slide on the moon. Today, however, China has been cutting back on U.S. treasuries, due in part to the uncertainty of U.S. government and politics. But it's mostly because over the last 2 decades, the Chinese yuan has become one of the strongest and most used currencies in the world. As such, it is no longer pegged to the U.S. dollar. And Chinese businesses have been using the yuan rather than the dollar in both domestic and foreign markets. In recent years, some economists have raised fears that China may attempt to sell off all its U.S. debt at once, which could ultimately destabilize the U.S. economy. But most believe it's unlikely that China will take such a risk, because with the U.S. market so deeply intertwined and necessary for the global market, the collapse of the U.S. dollar would still greatly harm the Chinese economy. The United Kingdom gave the United States James Bond, the Beatles, and a London Underground tube-load of cash. According to the U.S. Department of the Treasury, UK investments in U.S. treasuries rose from about $140 billion when adjusted for inflation in 2011 to about $670 billion in 2023. However, unlike many other global economies, the UK was slow to return to pre-pandemic levels of gross domestic product. In the wake of Brexit and the Ukraine war, and taxes in the country have outpaced growth since a difficult economic situation. Cold blimey. If the US were to default
Just
on
like
its
in
debts,
America.
the UK economy could suffer even more. According to UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, the UK is set to avoid recession. They might want to send 007 to make sure this all works out for them. He's got a license to kill and a license to practice accounting. In May of 2014, economists were surprised to see Belgium become the third largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury debt. Although they shouldn't have been that surprised, Belgium created the Smurfs, which had a stranglehold on the purse strings of many American households in the 80s. Still, it was a little unexpected that a country the size of Maryland would hold close to $400 billion in U.S. treasuries. Even more perplexing was the fact that Belgium's holdings had more than doubled from August of the year before. The mystery was quickly solved when Belgian-based financial house Euroclear, which sounds like bottom shelf booze but actually specializes in security transaction settlements, claimed responsibility for the surge. Euroclear could not provide specifics, which ironically makes things less Euroclear, but we know it holds assets for over 2,000 institutions in more than 90 countries. Financial experts assumed those assets were temporarily held by Belgium from other countries, primarily China or Russia. As predicted, Belgian holdings of U.S. Treasury securities dropped back down to about $150 billion in 2015. But since then, Belgian holdings have increased again, reaching about $330 billion in 2023. The southern border of Belgium is the even smaller nation kingdom of Luxembourg, with a population of less than.
See, they're showing you Belgium and Luxembourg. These are nations that's part of the 10 horns, man. These are the nations. That's why, man, this is beautiful. Was it Revelation 17 and 16, man? The 10 horns upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, man. Luxembourg is one of the 10 horns, man.
650,000 people and a GDP of $85 billion, Luxembourg has one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world, which we imagine really ticks Belgium off. But while the GDP is impressive, it doesn't fully explain how this small country is able to invest nearly $320 billion in U.S. treasuries. The truth is, similar to their larger but less wealthy neighbor, treasury investments made in Luxembourg are likely not being made by Luxembourg citizens, but by foreign companies. Luxembourg has a reputation as a tax haven, which of course makes it a major banking and financial center. More like Loopholeburg. The small nation is home to over 155 different banks that service corporations and their subsidiaries from all over the world, including Amazon, Apple, and IKEA, that Swedish meatball restaurant that also sells furniture. Thanks to Luxembourg's tax laws, many of the corporations that funnel earnings through the country pay a tax rate of less than 1%. And rather than let that money sit, the Luxembourgers find it more profitable to invest in bonds, bills, and other securities, like U.S. treasuries. With white sandy beaches, no income tax, and a GDP per capita that far exceeds most other nations in the Caribbean, the Cayman Islands sounds more like a mysterious Star Trek planet than an actual place on Earth. But the small group of islands, which has a population of about 68,000 people and a GDP of just under $6 billion, is actually home to more companies than people. Over the years, it has hosted subsidiaries and shell companies from corporations like Facebook, BP, and Goldman Sachs Group. It was also a filming location for James Cameron's directorial debut, Piranha 2: The Spawning. It didn't have the same cultural impact as Avatar. Much of the wealth in the Cayman Islands is made and held through hedge funds, which are accounts that pool investor wealth into securities and other investments. The British territory houses over 50% of the world's hedge funds, and it
You see, like the brother put up here, this is the brother Bayan Yasharala. Subscribe to the brother channel, Edifying Lessons. This is as a matter of fact, let me get this. Habakkuk chapter 2. In verse 6, it reads, shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb? And this is what the nations is doing. This word taunting proverb is a mocking. They're mocking. That's why you see the North Korea and Russia and Iran, them sending threats to America. Those are taunting proverbs. Shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him, increase of that which is not his? How long? And to him that laden himself with their clay, which is that debt. His debt, man. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee? And that's what it said in Isaiah 33 and 1. As a matter of fact, let me get this precept to this. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee? It's two precepts to go to that verse. You got Isaiah 33 and 1. It reads, woe to him, woe to thee that spoilest, and thou was not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. So this is one, Habakkuk 2 and 7, to link with this. The other one is in Job 20. No, Job 20 and 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. So every hand of the wicked is going to come upon him. So it says right here, Habakkuk 2 and 7, shall not they rise up suddenly that shall bite thee? Who? All the hand of the wicked. The word wicked, when you look it up in Job 20 and 22, it's the laborers. And everybody's laboring for the elites. And awake that shall vex thee, and that shall be for booties unto them. See? As it said in Isaiah 33 and 1, when he ceased to spoil, he shall be spoiled, man. These precepts is beautiful. They go together, man. So like it. This is Habakkuk 2 and 8. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee because of men's blood for the violence of the land. And the elect gonna be a part of that too when you read Ezekiel. Was that 25? The Lord said He gonna put His spirit on the remnant of Israel, and they gonna do and eat them according to the Lord's anger. It say of the city and of all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house. This is what the elites is doing, man. And this is stirring up the people that shall bite him, that shall vex him. He gonna be for booties unto them. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high. See, the elites only care about them. They don't give a damn about their people, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. See, they trying to heap up so they can hide from the Lord, man. They trying to every asset, they grabbing everything back, man. Man, the Lord is finna, man, the Lord, man, when it's the elites, man, the Lord gonna tell a whole new elites, man. And the king, man, they gonna get it, they gonna get it the worst, man. All Edomites gonna get it, but those elites, man, they gonna really get it, man.
February 2021.
Because the Lord, the scripture said the Lord hate the Edomites, right? They the people of his nation. They the people of his anger, right? But the Lord is a just power, man. You do your own people like this. When you read these scriptures, how the Israelites did the Israelites, man. That's what the Lord said in Micah 3, that the priests flay the skin off the Israelites and chop up their bones for the pot for the cauldron. Every time I read that in Micah 3, the Lord said they chop up the Israelite bone. These priests, these false pastors, Nate, and all these niggas that's deceiving the flock. It said they chop up their bones for the cauldron, for the pot. And every time I think about that, that's what Antiochus did to them sons. To some of them sons, man, he flayed their skin off them, man. This is what our own people is doing to us, man. Death Low Dollar, that nigga TD Snakes, that nigga Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackass, Martin Luther Queen, them niggas chop Jake Bones up for the pot, man, and cook niggas, man. So you know what the Lord gonna, man, what the Lord gonna do to 2/3 niggas into these Edomites? The Lord got an anger with Moab because he said that they destroyed the bones of the Edomites, man. When you read that, I think it's in Amos, man. The Lord got a vengeance for the Moabites too, man. The Lord is about order. You can't just do whatever, man. So for these elites to do this to their own people, they at least got a different judgment, man. Just like 2/3 of Israel got a different judgment, man. It is, man. Y'all supposed to, this is y'all kingdom. They supposed to be flourishing. It should not be one fucking Edomite. There should not be one so-called white person living in a goddamn trailer, man. It shouldn't be no Edomites living in no trailers, man. I'm sorry. I don't give a damn if it's a double wide trailer, man. And it just look, that wide trailer be nice. It should not be one so-called white person living in a damn trailer, man. Period. All these suburbs out here, man, in this land, and you got Edomite, and man, there's so many. When I say, man, so many trailer parks down here in Florida, man, it's ridiculous. It's cheaper. It should not be no Edomite living in no trailers, man.
The U.S. Treasury Department reported that the Cayman Islands became the largest monthly net buyer of long-term U.S. Treasuries.
We go to the movies for a fun escape.
When you think of the Swiss, you probably think of chocolate, hot chocolate, and those bank accounts where movie criminals hide all their money, and possibly chocolate. But Switzerland also has a long history as a global financial capital, welcoming many treasury bond investments. In early 2023, Switzerland's ostensibly stable economy was thrown into turmoil amid a banking crisis. Beginning with the March collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in the U.S., depositors and investors around the world feared for the stability of their own investments. Though most banks survived the market turmoil, Switzerland's second largest bank, Credit Suisse, did not. The bank collapsed and was bought up by its largest rival, UBS Group. As of May 2023, the effects of this crisis are still uncertain, and many questions have been raised about the strength of the Swiss economy, as well as the nation's status as a financial center. If the U.S. were to default, owners of U.S. treasuries in Switzerland, along with the rest of the world, would suffer losses, which could put Switzerland's economic health in even greater jeopardy. And you do not want to anger the Swiss. Have you seen their army knives? Ireland was actually the 8th largest foreign creditor to the United States in 2023, in large part because U.S. corporations were using Ireland as a starting point for European operations, due to the country's low corporate taxes and English-speaking workforce. Many of the U.S. treasuries held were attributed to subsidiaries of some of the largest U.S. companies, including Google's parent company Alphabet, to avoid a repatriation tax on overseas profits. In 2018, however, there was a major drop-off in U.S. treasuries held in Ireland, which some experts believed was due to U.S. companies repatriating their profits to the U.S. And if you don't know what repatriation means, well, alphabet it. In 2021, Ireland agreed to a joint international agreement to set the tax rate on multinational corporations to a minimum of 15%, which experts suspect could end the country's status as a tax haven. So even the luck of the Irish has its limits. Canada is respected throughout the world for being the friendly little country that gave us Rush and Michael J. Fox. It's also the northern neighbor to the U.S. So an average of $2.4 billion worth of product is traded between the two nations every day. Any economic crisis in the United States could have immediate effects on the Canadian economy. So there is probably no country more concerned with a potential U.S. default than Canada. Despite these close ties, Canada understandably cannot interfere in political standoffs that could bring about a U.S. default. The Canadian government and economists, however, are usually watching closely to minimize any ripple effects or spillover recessions that they predict will occur if the United States cannot come to an agreement over the debt ceiling. And if they get really mad, they'll take Ryan Reynolds away. The largest creditor to the United States is not actually a foreign nation. It's the good old US of A. In fact, as of January 2023, foreign nations own just 25% of the US national debt. The rest is split between public and intergovernmental holdings in America. So you're probably wondering how anything can be in debt to itself. Well, some federal agencies, including Social Security, the Military Retirement Fund, and Medicare, take in more tax revenue than is needed for their agency. Rather than let money sit there, those agencies invest in bonds, bills, and other securities, allowing the federal government to use the money elsewhere. But, as with any other debt, the federal government must still pay it back. Eventually. The rest of the debt the United States owes to itself is in public holdings, which include everything except the federal government and its agencies. A little over 50% of the U.S. debt is owed to U.S. banks and investors, mutual funds, pension funds, state and local governments, holders of savings bonds, and insurance companies, among many other private businesses, including
These are many other private businesses. It's to the elites, man. But they ain't gonna never say it.
your cousin Denny, who says he's got a real great investment opportunity and just needs a couple of grand to get it off the ground. Come on, lend him the cash. One of the largest owners among these is the U.S. Federal Reserve, which uses treasuries to regulate inflation and the amount of money in circulation. Due to the 2020 pandemic, the Fed increased the amount of treasuries it owned to stimulate the economy and support financial markets. As of August 2022, the U.S. Federal Reserve owns almost $9 trillion of U.S. debt, from C-note to shining C-note. So what do you think? Which of the...
Man, I got this last one here. America is through, man. This place is through. We watching it crumble. And it's a slow death. That's what the Lord said in let me read this in Isaiah Isaiah 14 and 11. Let me read this. Bear with me here. It's a slow death, man, from the inside out. This is Isaiah. Let me run this back. This is the last one here. Now this is that's why I'm playing this last, because this is the reason America. Hey, it's over, man. Isaiah 14:11 it reads, "Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worms is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee." Let me get this in NLT. Isaiah 14:11 NLT. NIV reads, "All your pomp has been brought down to the grave, along with the noise of your harps." Their music is trash, man. Even the Edomites' music is trash now. Maggots are spread out beneath you, and worms cover you. This is the NLT. Isaiah 14:11. Your might and power were buried with you. The sound of the harp in your palaces have ceased. Now maggots are your sheet. Ooh, and worms your blanket. Man, that's fire, man. Damn. Maggots are your sheet and worms your blanket. That's cold, man. Ooh, that's cold. Yeah, man. In the same way the Lord destroyed Antiochus Epiphanes, that slow death from the inside out, man. His flesh was falling off him. His men couldn't even smell his stink, his smell. That's a miracle. Babylon the Great stink. When you go out the door for 5 minutes, man, you got that outdoor smell on you. It wasn't like that in the 70s and the 80s when I was growing up in the country, man. You ain't had this smell on you like you got now, man. Every time you go out the door, 3 minutes, man. You go back and it's outdoor smell on you, man. America is done, man. Let's play this.
launch of BRICS Pay in 2024 been a major success. Every year, as the global stage shifts, non-Western nations introduce something that poses a new challenge for the West. This time, the focus is on de-dollarization, with the introduction.
And see what the elites is doing. And this year, how about Shema Shah? First and foremost, I will praise to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, Bahashim Rekah Kodash. What Yahweh Shema Shah is doing is using the elites to use BRICS. This is the new hegemony power. This is the new dominance. They're using the BRICS to push this digital currency, man. This is what's happening. And then when they get to America, and it's the elites, remember, the elites controlling all this, man. It's to condition people's mind to get ready. Because Argentina went digital. Argentina went digital. They mandated digital currency in Argentina, man. Other countries. The elites use the BRICS to do this, man. And this is why these countries are joining. So Cuba lights out, right? Now I did a lesson a couple weeks ago. Maybe I think about 2 weeks ago, maybe a week and a half, something. So Cuba's light out. Well, that's what they say allegedly. You know why? Cuba signed to join the BRICS. Yeah, Cuba signed to join the BRICS, man. So all of a sudden, all the lights out in Cuba. Cause they want to join BRICS. It's all a Ponzi scheme, man. It's the elites, man. They playing games with the people's mind. Let's run this back.
Has the launch of BRICS Pay in 2024 been a major success? Every year, as the global stage shifts, non-Western nations introduce something that poses a new challenge for the West. This time, the focus is on de-dollarization, with the introduction of BRICS Pay. At the recent BRICS Business Summit, the system's demo could attract more nations to align with this shift. But what transpired at the summit? Let's find out. The BRICS nations are stepping boldly into a new era of financial independence, marked by the unveiling of the BRICS Pay Card payment system. At the recent BRICS Business Forum in Moscow on October 17 and 18, 2024, the system was showcased as a pivotal development that could reshape the global financial landscape. More than just a new payment tool, BRICS Pay represents a profound shift towards local currency-based trade, reducing the reliance on the US dollar and challenging the traditional dominance of Western financial networks. At this forum, participants were introduced to BRICS Pay cards, preloaded with 500 rubles, which could be used at designated shops marked with the BRICS Pay logo. This
These damn infomercials, man.
Rule number 3, you can't get rich slow.
Come on, man.
When I owned 100 houses.
This demonstration was more than just a test of new technology. It was a signal to the world that the BRICS bloc is prepared to forge a new path in global finance, one where the rules are written by emerging economies.
Oh, see, there you go. Collapsed power grid, hurricane landfall leaves Cuba in total crisis. See? Okay, it's from a hurricane. Yeah, man. What? So it said Cuba to join BRICS. They accepted. It said to accept. It say I had to write it down. Cuba to join BRICS. To accept BRICS currency in 2024. Yeah. So now all of a sudden they got a power grid from a hurricane landfall. Yeah. Okay.
Economies, rather than dictated by the West. But an important question here is, why was BRICS Pay necessary in the first place? For years, the BRICS nations have been navigating a financial landscape heavily skewed in favor of Western powers. The dominance of the US dollar in global trade, coupled with the influence of Western financial institutions like SWIFT, has left many nations vulnerable to the whims of geopolitical tensions. For instance, Russia, one of the founding members of BRICS, has been repeatedly targeted by Western economic sanctions, particularly after the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the more recent conflict in Ukraine. These sanctions have effectively cut Russia off from the global financial system, limiting its access to international markets and crippling its economy. In response to these vulnerabilities, BRICS nations began exploring alternatives to the traditional financial systems dominated by the West. The BRICS Business Council, which initiated the BRICS Pay project in 2018, recognized that the bloc's economic sovereignty depended on developing an independent payment system that could facilitate cross-border transactions without relying on the US dollar. The necessity of BRICS Pay became even more apparent as the geopolitical landscape continued to shift, with rising tensions between the West and emerging economies. This shift is not just about protecting individual countries from sanctions. It's about fostering a system that allows BRICS nations to trade in their currencies and maintain control over their financial destiny. By reducing reliance on the US dollar, BRICS Pay offers a solution that enhances financial sovereignty and creates a more balanced global financial ecosystem. This necessity stems from a growing realization among BRICS nations that financial independence is as critical as political and economic autonomy. As the world becomes more fragmented, with competing economic blocs emerging, the need for a payment system that can operate independently of Western institutions has become urgent. This leads us to the next question. What features of this new payment system were revealed during the summit? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now.
Now you see
The BRICS pay systems.
You see how the elites set this up, man. It is what Putin said. I did a lesson on this. I mentioned this now a lot. This from 2 months ago. I titled it Babylon the Great is devaluing, depreciating by the day. Putin has decided that Russia is going to be a safe haven for people who want to trade liberal Western ways for Russian moral values. As a matter of fact, what is playing? Let me pull this up.
Foundation lies in blockchain technology, but why is this particular technology critical to the project's success? What does blockchain bring to the table that traditional systems do not? At its core, blockchain is a decentralized ledger technology that enables real-time, transparent, and secure transactions without the need for intermediaries. In traditional financial systems, intermediaries like banks and clearinghouses add layers of complexity, slowing down transactions and increasing costs. By leveraging blockchain, BRICS Pay can bypass these intermediaries, facilitating faster and cheaper cross-border payments between member states. One of the standout features of blockchain is its security. All transactions are recorded on an immutable ledger, meaning they cannot be altered or deleted once they are verified. This provides a level of transparency and fraud protection that is unmatched by traditional financial systems. For countries like Russia and China, which are also paramount. Furthermore, blockchain's decentralized nature aligns perfectly with BRICS' vision of creating a multipolar financial world order. In a centralized system, power is concentrated in the hands of a few major players, namely Western financial institutions. But in a decentralized system like blockchain, no single entity has control over the entire network. This distribution of power is essential for BRICS nations, as it ensures that no country or institution can unilaterally cut them off from the financial system, as has happened with SWIFT. But blockchain's value doesn't stop there. One of the most ambitious aspects of BRICS Pay is its potential to integrate digital currencies into the system, creating a truly global and decentralized payment ecosystem. This brings us to our next question. Could this have on the global financial system? As the BRICS Pay system continues to evolve, one of the most intriguing possibilities is the introduction of a digital currency, specifically for the BRICS bloc. The current global financial system is built on the foundation of the US dollar, which serves as the world's reserve currency. This dominance has given the United States an unparalleled degree of influence over global trade, allowing it to impose economic sanctions, control the flow of capital, and dictate the terms of international finance. By introducing a BRICS digital currency, the bloc could challenge this dominance and create a more equitable financial system. A BRICS digital currency would allow member states to conduct trade without converting their currencies into dollars, saving time and reducing transaction costs. Moreover, this currency would be backed by the collective economies of BRICS nations, which together account for nearly 45% of the world's population and 30% of global GDP. This would give the digital currency significant weight in the global market. In practical terms, the introduction of a digital currency would also facilitate cross-border payments within the BRICS bloc. For example, a business in Brazil could pay for goods from China using the BRICS digital currency without having to convert Brazilian reais into US dollars and then into Chinese yuan. This would streamline trade and make the BRICS bloc more economically integrated. But the real breakthrough comes from the potential use of stablecoins and tokenized assets within the BRICS Pay ecosystem. Tokenization refers to the process of converting physical assets or fiat currency into digital tokens that can be traded on a blockchain. BRICS Pay plans to introduce tokens like the NSRB token, which will act as a stablecoin pegged to the national currencies of BRICS nations. This token would facilitate seamless exchanges between currencies, further enhancing the efficiency of cross-border transactions. The introduction of a BRICS digital currency would also serve as a counterweight to Western financial dominance. By creating a parallel financial system that operates independently of the US dollar, BRICS nations would be able to shield themselves from economic sanctions and control their financial future. So, was this summit a win? Yes, the BRICS Business Forum Summit was a resounding win, but not just because of the technological advancements demonstrated. The true victory lies in the strategic signaling and the narrative that BRICS is reshaping for itself and the world. One of the overlooked aspects of the summit was how BRICS Pay aligns with a broader geopolitical realignment. The unveiling of this new payment system sends a message that the global south is no longer content with playing by the rules set by Western institutions. What makes the BRICS Pay rollout significant is that it's not just a financial maneuver, but a political statement. The world is being invited to witness a new order taking shape, one where economic autonomy and sovereign control over financial systems are paramount. This win isn't just about BRICS Pay working successfully as a demo. It's also about the collective trust and momentum that the BRICS nations are building as they set themselves up as the alternative to the West's financial grip. There is growing recognition that emerging economies don't want to be subject to monetary policies dictated by the Federal Reserve or beholden to Western sanctions that can cripple an economy overnight. BRICS Pay is a response to that, but more importantly, it's a defense mechanism. Furthermore, the summit displayed BRICS' ability to practically implement innovation. Unlike many geopolitical initiatives that are heavy on rhetoric and light on action, BRICS Pay is a concrete outcome. The system isn't just theoretical. The cards worked, QR payments were made, and it all happened in real time. That in itself shows the technical and organizational capacity of the BRICS nations to implement large-scale transformative systems. A less discussed but crucial element of the summit was the timing. It's no coincidence that the forum and the rollout of BRICS Pay occurred amidst rising US-China tensions, Russia's isolation, and a re-evaluation of global alliances. BRICS is capitalizing on the fractured state of Western leadership, with nations from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia increasingly questioning the old financial order. The timing shows that BRICS isn't just reacting to Western dominance, it's proactively setting a new global financial narrative. Do you think this was a major hit to the US dollar hegemony? What to expect after this? Will nations find it appealing? Let us know.
It's prophecy, man. That's the Ezekiel 38. And that's enough of that. So this say BRIC Pay card is here. BRICS successfully, let me see what it say. BRICS Pay card is here. BRICS successfully launches new payment card ahead of 2024 summit. See? So let me put this on screen. I'm gonna close showing this here, man. Because as Putin said, And when he said this, man, I was so excited, man, to see this because the Lord said that in Ezekiel 38 that Putin, that Gog will be a guard to the nations. I did a lesson on this about 2 months ago. right here. Putin has decided that Russia is going to be a safe haven for people who want to trade liberal Western ways for Russian moral values. That's Ezekiel 38, man. This is the Tunting proverb, man. See this right here? This would be one of those major Tunting proverbs, man. Let me get this, cause right, it tell you in matter of fact, let me get it from the blue letter. That word liberal, right? When you go to Isaiah, was it Isaiah 29? This is man, this is fire. This is fire. I be cracking myself up, man. Even when I be pissed off, man, the Lord had me cracking up, man. This is Isaiah 29 and 20 reads, "For the terrible one is brought to naught, and the scorner is consumed, and all that watch for iniquity shall be cut off." The terrible one is Esau, even the so-called white man. So this is the elites destroying their own selves. Let me get this one. In Isaiah 32, because this verse, because it here it said, Putin has decided that Russia is going to be a safe haven. See, this is the guard speaking. This is the guard boasting. Putin has decided that Russia is going to be a safe haven for people who want to trade liberal Western ways for Russian moral values. And the Western ways have went throughout the four corners of the earth. Was in the video showing you everybody got debt because of the petrodollar. So he like, hey, you want to be able to do your videos by yourself without your hey, without anybody in your videos, man. Come to death row, man. What Suge said about P Diddy and when he was cracking, when they were making the joke, like, man, you wanna do your videos, man, and your producers and your managers ain't in the video. Come to death row, man. This is Putin. This is the guard talking, man. This is a touching proverb. This is Isaiah 32. This is Isaiah 32 in verse 5. It reads, "The vile person shall no more be called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful." So Putin say, hey, you want who? It say he's going to be a safe haven for people who want to trade liberal Western ways, because the West don't got no, they ain't liberal, man, over here, for Russian moral values, man. Let's get this word liberal here. It say, Isaiah 30:25, "The vile person shall no more be called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful." And to show you how cold the Lord is, this is Edomite on Edomite violence. That's Isaiah 19:12. Isaiah 19:2. The Egyptians shall be fight against the Egyptians, man. And every man against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. It say, "For the vile person will speak villainy, and his heart will work iniquity, to practice hypocrisy, and to utter error against Yahweh, to make empty the soul of the hungry," which is the Israelites. Now it's applied to his people, "and he will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail." So it said the instruments also the churl are evil. He devises wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. And by liberal things shall he stand. The word liberal is supposed to be good, man. Let's get it. Liberal. It's a noble, generous, right? Noble, generous, uh, free, willing, hearted, So the vile person should normally be called liberal. See, this nigga been vile the whole time. But he was playing that role, man. Let's get this word vile here. Fucking devils, man. Vile, stupid, wicked, foolish, vile person. Let's see what strong definitions say. To be senseless, be foolish, to regard or treat as foolish, to be, it said to treat with contempt. You got disgrace, come to naught, dishonor, wither away, fade away. So the vile person, he's fading away. And this goes back to Psalms. To get this in Psalm 73, man. The Lord, man. The Lord cold, man. Years and years of these Edomites building up that vile person. The Lord is destroying them, man. And it's a slow, painful death. And they don't see it. Only the whole flex see this. Psalm 73 and 20. As a dream when one awaketh, so, O Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, when thou awakest, thou shalt despise their image. And we go to the word despise. Let's look it up. This is the word despise in Psalm 73. Man, the Lord cold, man. Man, what can you say? The Lord is destroying the Edomites, man. Slow, painful death, man. This is the word despise. H959. To be despised, to be despicable, to be vile, worthless, disdain, vile person, scorn. Disdain, vile person, man. And that's what Job said. How the hell Job gonna be an Edomite? One of the words he'll say, disdain. Then Job say, let's read it. Nigga vocal here talking about Job was an Edomite because he was living in the land of Uz. You slow belly. This is Job 30 and 1. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I will have disdain to have sit with the dogs of my flocks. Why is Job calling himself he is an Edomite? The Lord in Psalm 73, the word despise meaning to be disdained, vile person. And Job called him vile. In verse 7, he said, in verse 8, they were children of fools, yeah, children of base men, they were viler than the earth. Job talking about himself? No, man. Well, here it is. Putin with the tuntiest. This is the tuntiest proverb I have heard so far. Putin has decided that Russia is going to be a safe haven. This is the guard speaking here, man. A safe haven for people who want to trade liberal Western ways. Liberal meaning you're supposed to be upright. You're supposed to be doing things according to Yahweh Shema Shah. So Putin like, hey, I'm an Edomite, but I do you better than the West. Come over here to death row. Lord was edifying. You got to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh. Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rekah Korash. Double honors to the apostles and the bishop and elders, a great millstone who rule well, who teach well. Well, the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether accepted or not. And the sincere salutation to all the Akim pushing this truth and believing this truth with the four winds of the earth. The entire world shed light to the hopeful elect. Shalom to the Akwath who will listen learning. If you sisters will listen learning. Throughout tuning in, throughout for your precepts. May Yahweh Shema Shah continue blessing your houses and may the blessing of Alexa be upon your houses. Till next time I say Shalom, Wa Abba. I'm going to close with Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Shalak Rayum, Wa Anashim, Wa Badyam, Wa Haragim, Wa Mashapayim, I'll call the William Walker, Warrior Wayab, Yamna Bapa Shah, Yahweh Basha, Yahweh Shah, the water I'm on. Hey, for your precepts. Until next time, I say Shalom.